Welcome back to the Lead Lamp podcast. This week we have Bethany from Liz B Collective in Carlisle. So you said before we started recording, you're the B.
I am the B of Liz B. Yeah.
And that took us a while to figure out too, because I remember
everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody gives me like what they're like, I don't know, it's like some mysterious like puzzle they're trying to piece. I didn't think it'd be such a big deal, but I get asked that so much. And I'm like, man, maybe I should have thought about the name a little bit more.
I think it's just like people look at a brand if it's a name and they're like, whose name is that? We want to know the owner. And
we're a collective,
yeah.
right? So
explain that.
When I think like collective, I think of it's all the different pieces coming together, which is like what makes it unique and beautiful, right? So I felt like if I came in too strong with just my identity in the name, that's kind of taking away from the whole collective aspect. I'm definitely the type of leader where I like to lead from the back. I would rather my team kind of be the stars and me kind of like lay low.
You're empowering them.
Yeah, I think that's what I think in 2024, I think that's what it's all about, empowerment of others, right? So when I thought about like what my brand was, what I stood for, what my name is, I tried to actually with Liz B Collective, I didn't want to just like shine the light on myself.
Right.
I wanted to kind of make sure that I was in there, but it was like inconspicuous enough to where I want my team to shine.
Right.
So, because Liz B is way bigger than I am, honestly. Yeah. I was just the dumb one that pulled the loan out.
You're the one that was like, all right, well, I'm going to climb this hill if I have to.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Let's go into that. I know briefly from our interactions, and a couple years ago, we talked with you when you were first starting in Carlisle. Let's go through like where you were before that and how you got into owning your own salon now in Carlisle.
Full transparency, I never wanted to own my own business. I never did. I've been around small business most of my life.
And you were always
I knew that work never ends. You're never off work. I saw the stress financially, everything. So I never really ever thought I would be in a position like this. I worked for a company that had multiple locations in the same industry for about 17 years. I started out when I was 16 as a receptionist. It was an after high school gig. And I totally fell in love with the inner workings of the industry.
Just the whole...
Everything about it. I
okay.
loved piecing it all together. I loved the creativity. I loved the flexibility. We always came at it from the approach of running a business that's structured, but not corporate. Right?
Right.
Because when you think of like corporate America, you think of like, oh my gosh, my hands are tied, right?
Right.
I have to walk a fine line. But there also has to be structure in business for it to be profitable and for people to thrive. So I felt like finding that balance was so exciting for me.
And you knew that early on.
I knew that early on. Yeah. The owner, he would come up front and I would have sticky notes of what our sales were from like the previous day. And he was like, what are these numbers? And I was like, well, that's what we did in sales yesterday. So I'm trying to beat that number. And he was like, you came up with that on your own? And I was like, yeah, I'm super competitive.
Right.
Side note.
So you're like making
for me, it's like, if I'm going to sit up here, I'm going to make a game out of it. And I'm going to try to be competitive about it. So I went to receptionist to liaison to location manager. And then we opened multiple locations and I was general manager. And I think at the peak of my career, I had like 60 some employees.
Oh, wow.
So I would travel to the location. The direct managers would report to me and it was good. It was awesome. It was working. I was happy until it wasn't. Right. Because unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, when you have that very spirited personality and you're competitive and you're very goal oriented, you do great, but it can't last forever because you're constantly wanting more.
Right. There's a period where you either reach the limit of where you're at and you're kind of bumping your head on a ceiling, or you run it like you make it so hard on yourself where it's like, the next step is literally going to burn you out doing what you're doing, like wherever you're at.
I was in my early 30s. Like, who wants to be like at your early 30s? This is it for me. Hopefully I live a really long life and I'm like, still, I've got plenty of life to live. I have plenty of energy to give. So I found myself kind of at a crossroads there. I thought about getting out of the industry altogether. Like, hey, maybe this is just a way to reinvent myself. I went on lots of job interviews and everyone wanted to put me in sales. Every single person I met, they were like, yeah, we don't see you for like project manager, but have you considered sales? And I was like, no, stop trying to put me in sales. So like, I kind of came back to the drawing board a little bit defeated on that. But so I kind of like regrouped a little bit. I knew it wasn't going to be super supported, me going off on my own in the same industry. So I kind of had to take a leap of faith there. There's a saying that goes, what's better for some is always worse for others. So sometimes to better yourself, it means that you're kind of leaving some other people behind. And that's a tough one. It really is, because I strongly believe in never burn a bridge. But I took the leap on my own. I took out a stupid loan. I had big dreams. I didn't know if it was going to work or not. There was most nights I couldn't sleep. I thought I made a big mistake for a long time. And, but for whatever reason, I just got up every morning and I kept going. Right. And I think that's my advice to anybody in that position is you're never going to know sometimes what that direction looks like or what the finality of it is. But the whole point is to continue to get up and to keep going.
It's kind of like, I'm a big runner, but it's a different thing where it's the same mentality, but it's a different application. So it's just relentless forward progress.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter how fast you're moving.
It's time on your feet.
But if you're moving in one direction and you know that that's the direction you want to go, like,
right.
It doesn't matter if today you only took 10 steps and tomorrow you ran an extra mile, you're still moving in the same direction. So it sounds like that's what you knew you needed to do instead of worrying about the end goal. You're just like, all right, let's just keep moving forward. I got to take over this. Right. I got this big project on my lap now. Let's just take it one bite at a time.
Right. I never lost sight of end goal. End goal was always there, but
so you had something on paper, or you wrote down like, this is what I want.
Yeah, that was what I want. And I'm not even like there. I haven't even like reached that. Right. Okay. So like everything is kind of like a stepping stone that leads to the next one. And I think it's not only just getting up and keep going. I think it is also being able to be flexible to pivot. The goal never changes, right? Your approach changes. The plan changes.
There's a couple detours.
Yeah. Right. And I think sometimes people get super, super like hung up on this is not going exactly as I planned it. I promise you it never will.
Right.
And so you have to get those false realities out of your mind right now, because it's just never going to happen that way. And it honestly does. I don't think it ever gets easier. I think you just get stronger. Right.
Yeah. You think on your feet a little quicker too.
Yeah, you do. And you don't sweat things as much. I think what Bethany 5 years ago, if you would have told me I would be able to take on and tackle some of the stresses that I deal with on a weekly basis now,
you don't even think about half
5 years ago, there's no way I could handle that. Today you handle it. And I have this approach of, we'll figure it out. If I'm lucky enough, the sun is going to set. And if I'm really lucky, it's going to rise tomorrow morning, right? I'll get another stab at it. And sometimes I think fresh eyes are great. So don't sweat it.
And that's another thing. I'm sure you run into it a lot too. Now you have your own employees. I mean, when you had 60 people working under you before, it was different because, there was still someone above you.
Right.
But like now this is your team.
Right.
You've assembled this team. And oftentimes you might feel this way. They look at you like, well, she's gonna always make the right decision. Like I got to go to her. But it's fun to teach them also like, well, I'm not always as the business owner, I'm not always going to make the right decision either, but like, let's work on this together. Let's figure it out. And you've probably learned that too, where you don't have to put all that pressure on yourself when you have a team. Like, hey, I'm the business owner. I'm in charge, but like, let's figure it out together.
Right. Well, I'm the business owner, but I'm a human being. Right. Like at the end of the day, we're all human.
Well, and you're probably empowering enough people too, to say like, all right, I put you in this position to make whatever decision for me. Let's work on it together. At the end of the day, I'll take that fall. I'll fall on the sword, but I'm empowering you to help me run this business.
Right. And as long as you've done your job as a leader and offered clarity to everybody of also what the goal is, right? Because if you're going to take a business step and own a business and it's just like a one-man show, you don't have to worry about making sure everybody understands your steps of what you're working towards. But when you decide to take on a team, you have to offer them inside of that clarity with transparency and humility too, right?
Right.
You have to also help them understand, okay, this is where I want to go. And this is how you are a very intricate part of that goal. And this is why I need you. And this is why I want you here, right? Make them feel a part of something.
Yeah.
And because I feel like when they take that ownership and when they feel a part of something, they're that much more willing to help it grow.
It becomes their goal.
Absolutely.
Like it's not, well, I'm not doing this for Bethany. I'm doing this because I want to do that.
Right.
Like she trusts me with this. Now this is my project.
Right. I don't want to people to work for me, right? I want to work with people. I've always said that. If you were described to me the worst work environment ever, it's put me in a solo room by myself in front of a computer. That is my literal nightmare. I need to be around people. I need to be working on a project with them. I need to be being able to give advice or give my ideas, but also receive from others. That is where I thrive.
Okay.
And I've learned that about myself. I didn't know that initially, because you just don't know what you don't know, right?
So you don't know until you are in that situation, like, this is not me.
Yeah. So coming into that, I was very young when I got into management, and unfortunately, I made a lot of mistakes that I had to learn. I had to make those mistakes to learn from them. I didn't have anybody kind of trailblazing that for me to be like, hey, don't do this, right? I kind of would like crash into the brick wall and be like, I'm never doing that again. So it took me several times to kind of figure those things out. And it's so funny because I went at it and I made life so much harder for myself because I was just trying to put on a facade.
Yeah.
When you're just you and you're just human and real, it's so much easier.
I think that's probably a better way to learn how to manage people than it is to be coached constantly too. Because if you did have a mentor that was like, hey, this is how you do this, don't do that, don't do it this way, you wouldn't be in the situation you're at either as far as a manager, because you wouldn't have been presented with those struggles or those heartaches or whatever that pain that caused you early on when you were younger. Like now you're able to train others. Is like, I've been down that road, don't do that. Like you trained yourself.
Right.
Might have been a little bit more painful in the moment, 10, 15 years ago.
Stuff back.
but at the same time, like you wouldn't have learned those hard lessons to be more successful as a business owner and a leader now if you didn't do it that way 10 years ago.
Right. I think anytime something can be authentic and organic, I think it holds a little bit more value.
You got to fall on your face.
Yeah, it holds a little bit more value. You always knew the kids that, and this is not a punch at anybody, you always knew the kids where their parents were paying for college versus the ones that were doing it on their own, right? Yeah. There was always like a little different in their swags, right? Like one kind of walks a little bit differently than the others. And I think that life kind of presents its way that way.
Yeah, it's like that with anything, and not just college, it could be it's
anything.
Like depending on how somebody was, if they were not in adverse situations, whatever it was, it's just usually they handle things a little bit differently too.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Yeah. I've personally been through a couple scenarios where you meet someone who's never been like exposed to a challenge that was like a legitimate challenge or an adverse situation. And it's just the panic is immediate. Like,
yes.
Whereas you're with another group of people who might have a bit more of a diverse background. They're like, oh, this is not something to sweat.
So you have to understand, I work in an industry where every day I'm reminded that I'm getting older and they're getting younger. And I'm constantly humbled by that.
You mean all your like,
oh my gosh,
your stylists?
Yeah. So for instance, today somebody was talking about a post that they made and they were like, yeah, my caption was D&D. I was like, oh, like Dungeons and Dragons. And they laughed for like probably 15 minutes. Apparently, sidebar, that means do not disturb. I didn't know that. So I'm like super old. And I'm constantly reminded in my industry that I am.
We have kind of that dynamic here where
who's the old one? Who do I need? Who can I sit with at lunch?
Tyler and I are the oldest too. So Tyler and I are kind of the older, but Tyler's a little bit more up on things, I think, than I am. Yeah. I'm sometimes a little bit more removed from some trends. Yeah. And they'll be talking about things, and occasionally I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to take a funny guess at it or whatever. But I'm also, when I get home, I'm in a similar situation because my wife teaches 5th grade.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So she's exposed to like these.
Bless her.
Slang, whatever the term is or whatever. Yeah. Oh God. If I say that at home, I got to be outside. I'll have to go outside.
My daughter told me I was cringy when I said it, and I'm just trying to be relevant.
I don't even know what it means. I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So like, you're probably in an environment that's like triple what I have here, but it's the same thing. Like, and that's a great thing for your team to see too, where you're not afraid to be embarrassed and like.
And
all right, everyone
awesome.
make fun of me,
right? It's awesome because it's the checks and balances. There's a time where my wisdom and life experience comes into play, right?
But they also see you like you're a human,
right?
Like, we can laugh at our boss.
And I encourage people to be people. I've always said, when people get like super upset in a situation where somebody's like wronged them or whatever, I'm like, you're being upset for people being people. That's so unproductive, right?
Right.
Let people be people, and your life will be so much easier.
Like someone's not intentionally harming you or making you upset.
Absolutely.
It's It's just human interaction.
And that kind of goes back to that whole, like, I run a pretty tight ship. I run a very structured business, right? We're systematic and we're intentional because I want to be successful, but more importantly, I want my staff to be successful. But that doesn't mean I need to control who they are as individuals or take away from their uniqueness. And I think sometimes corporate America, they got that wrong because they tried to make everyone fit into the same mold.
Yeah,
and that's
like robots.
It's 2024.
Try to be robots.
You can't do that. People are the most, they're the most efficient and they do the best work when you can let them breathe and let them let their hair down.
When they're happy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't know when that clicked for me, but I truly think everyone's like, how do you do it? I'm proud to say that I probably get like 2 applications a week. Why? How are
even
you
when
getting,
you're not?
Yeah. In a market where it's really, really tough to hire, like how? And it's so simple to me. It's see people for who they are and don't focus on their shortcomings because as human beings, we do that too often. Everyone has a strength. Everyone has a gift. You just have to be willing to find it. And I think mine is being able to see what people's potential is and getting them to believe that and letting them follow that and encouraging them. And it's amazing what they're capable of doing.
And in an industry where I'm not going to pretend to know your industry at all.
And I'm not going to pretend to know yours.
Yeah. I mean, you were talking earlier, you were talking about like, if you had to sit in front of a screen all day, it would drive you nuts.
And you're like, that's my dream.
Dang, that's like what all of us do most of the time is like, we're just sitting in front of a screen.
No, I'm a people person, which is why I came in here and I started interviewing everybody.
But I mean, I think we have a mix of it too, because we're in a communications industry. So like, you can't be like, Cody's sitting here recording this and he'll be editing this later. But at the same time, he's in a communications industry. We have to be able to talk to people too. Right. So we can't be completely, stuck in our little cave.
Yeah.
But let's go back to that. I'm not going to pretend to know the salon industry or anything like that. But it sounds like you need you call them your stylists?
My team.
Okay. They need to be like, they run their own schedules.
Yeah, flexibility is huge in this day and age. You gotta, my industry is predominantly women, right?
Right.
And yes, women are heavy in the workforce these days, but women kind of always assume a little bit more responsibility when it comes to kids, right? And I think most employers, also for like dental hygienists, for like Verber, I think it's very similar, right?
Very heavy female.
So
industry.
It's mom first, always. It doesn't matter if you're like the CEO of like 17 companies. I believe most women they come from the backing of I'm mom first, right? So flexibility is a big thing as an employer. I don't even know just in my industry, but yes, specifically for mine.
Yeah.
And this is a very physically taxing job too.
You're on your feet all day,
Yes.
working with your hands. But so what I was trying to get at was like, you have a structure for how you want the business to be run, but then you also have the ability and skill set, and you probably look for that in your team too, to be able to self-manage their schedules. Okay, well, so-and-so can't come into a blank because she has an obligation with her kids, but she's able to still be successful because you're giving her the tools to, run her chair or run her schedule efficiently with her clients. Cause they probably all have their own little groups of clients.
They do. Yeah, they do. So I'll give you an example. This morning, actually, this is kind of what I dealt with. I got a text message at 7:00. My son's been crying for the last 2 hours. I think he has an ear infection. We're on our way to the doctors. I might have to clear my schedule. My first one said she'd come into tomorrow. Cool. Awesome. I hope he's feeling better. Please keep me in the loop. Couple hours later, hey, still no word. We don't know which direction we're going to go. And I said, well, I have an interview at 12:30 in Harrisburg with this amazing company. And I said, I can try to rearrange that and I can take your customers for you, or we can pop into next week. She ended up texting back and was like, actually, my husband's coming home. He's going to handle it. I'll come in for my last 2. Thank you so much for working with me.
Yeah.
It's so,
and you made
you're thanking
me
for something that doesn't even, I don't even feel like I'm doing anything. But I think that means the world to them.
I mean, you reduced what would normally be, it's already a high stress thing. And you took the worry of like, well, crap, what's my employer going to say? What's my boss going to say? Now, half of that worry is gone.
Right.
Okay, I can just sit here and focus on getting something, whatever, taken care of for my family. And I don't have to worry about work because, they know I'll make up what I need to, and they're handling whatever needs to be done.
Maybe it is because I'm a mom too. And I know that all of your worry and concern should be for your son's health right now. I should be the second half of that. And I'm also very much, it kind of goes back to that. I want to work with you. I don't want you to work for me.
Yeah.
I'm happy to jump in and be a convenience and an asset for you wherever I can. If I can make your life easier, please let me do that for you. Because then I find my success in that. You know, I get to leave and I feel like I did something awesome for somebody.
Yeah.
So I feel successful in that.
You probably also, I don't want to speak for your team, but you probably also have other team members now that do that for other people.
They
jump in where they need to.
And that's the difference between, you know, this industry. There's a lot of like independent suites you can do. The great thing about this industry is you can get your license. You can work in any state as long as you transfer it over, and you can be your own independent boss, right? You can work for yourself. So where's the value in working for a team? Right. If working for a team, I'm only going to add more stress and chaos to your life. Why would I not push you in? That would totally push you in the direction of wanting to work on your own. If I'm going to embrace and promote this team setting that in an industry where it doesn't have to be that way, I need to make it appealing and a benefit for you. Because if in that situation, she did not work for anybody and she was her own boss, she would have had to call all of her clients. She would have had to rearrange. She wouldn't have had somebody doing it kind of for her on the back end.
Do you have people that you have to explain that to when they realize it's a team environment and they think it's going to be more of the corporate, like, oh crap, like I don't want to have to, like, I don't want that. I want to work for myself. Do you ever have to explain how it's different than, like, I don't know?
No, I believe in actions, not words. I show them.
They see, and that's why you're getting applicants.
A couple of weeks working with me, you're gonna see like, oh, this is like, this is lead by example kind of thing.
I didn't know if like, so in our parent organization of our rental group, we have to explain that, you know, we are a group, but we're not like a lot of other groups you see for in the dental industry, which are like private, a lot of outside equity. There's a lot of other things that are pushing the dental care into a space that's not where like hygienists want to work. So I didn't know if you kind of have to look at that and go like, no, we're not corporate. Like it is a big team, but this is how it's run.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So yeah, I'm sure I try not to drop that word corporate.
Yeah. That'll scare like half people
it'll scare everybody away. So the thing about human beings is we love to push back at boundaries. We love to say that we don't want them. We just want to run wild and free. But in reality, as humans, we actually hate that. We hate running around a field, not knowing the rules of the game or whether we're winning or losing.
You like to find the edge and like see how far you can get. But then you like to know that you can jump back inside.
Absolutely. Right. So it sounds great in theory. Like, I just want to run around like crazy. I don't want anybody telling me anything. I just want to come and go as I please. That's chaos, right? There's no predictability there. You don't know whether you're coming or going, and you end up making life a little bit harder than what it needs to be, right? Because there's no predictability in your life.
It's nothing. There's no
predictability for your clients. There's no predictability for your finances, right? So when you have somebody that you can kind of, you know, again, at the end of the day, I'm the owner. Typically, if you want to be mad at your job, it's me. I'm public enemy number one. I mean, it comes with the role. But believe it or not, I've had so many people that have worked for me over my 20 years actually come back to work for me.
They do it like a round two.
The biggest thing they say is when you work for somebody as methodical and structured and intentional as you can't ever not work for somebody like that again, because you appreciate it, right? I know I'm coming to work. I know everything that I need is going to be there. I know that if anything happens in my day, somebody's going to take care of it. I know I'm going to get off when I need to get off. And I know that I just need to come. The standard is what they need to deliver, right? Yeah. They just need to deliver a great experience to the customer. That's all they have to do. Come in, do that, work with a team that is hopefully awesome to work with, and then you get to leave.
And it sounds like it sounds fun because they hopefully think it's fun too, because they're able to add their flavor to what their standard is. Like there's a standard, but your standard, the way that you would follow the standard and the way that I would present that standard to a customer of yours would be completely different probably.
Right.
But at least there's still a standard. It's just the flavor that client wants.
Right. I think the biggest thing that I get from my customers, because our clientele base has just amplified since this move for me, which it's just crazy to think that we're here. Like, because I remember 4 years ago, just dreaming of, I hope I can get there someday. Right. So to live it, it's like, I try to remember that. But I think the biggest thing I get back from people and why they choose Lisby Collective is because it's a space where, I don't know, I hate to use like these just like really hip words, but it's a safe space.
Yeah.
They come in and it's consistency. They know that they are going to be consistently treated well every time that they come.
I'm not calling your space McDonald's, but it's like that McDonald's theory of like,
yes,
you get a Big Mac here, it's the same as a Big Mac down the road. And although take what you want about McDonald's and their food quality or whatever, they do have that service. And a lot of businesses like to implement that same consistency of service, whether it's within one location or 50 across their team.
Right.
So,
and I think you get there by, I mean, we're a salon. Salons are a dime a dozen. I don't need to, I mean, anybody like listening to this is like, I just passed 3 of them. Right.
Yeah.
So like what makes us differently? Like what makes us different? And I always kind of go back to this analogy of, if you go to a steakhouse, you're going to order a steak and you're going to expect that it's good, right? I mean, we can all say if I chose the steakhouse, what you didn't expect was the mac and cheese to be like literally the most amazing thing that you ever expected.
Right.
It's the things that people don't expect that you put that focus in on your business that truly makes the fans. It makes them like, wow, that was an experience.
And that's like
something
that for
I won't forget.
Any business. Like if anyone's listening that's either starting a business or has a business, it's, anyone can do whatever services that you're offering. There's probably 100 other people within a 50-mile circle doing that service or more. But like, what are you doing?
How are you setting yourself apart?
Right. And also like knowing that, and you've probably run into this too, you don't have to be everything to everyone. Like there's going to be people that don't like, I'm sure there's people that don't like Lisby Collective.
Right.
And that's okay. There's people that probably won't choose us for their marketing services because something doesn't jive, but there's plenty of other people that do. And that's where you need to find that audience and kind of hit that.
Yeah. You're so right about that. Yeah. And I will tell you, for anybody running a business or anything, you have to take the personal aspect out of that. It is tough, right?
It's a business.
Right. Especially for someone, again, I'm competitive, right? I want to win all the time. I want to be I want to be the best, or I want to get there first. You can't, and you're not going to.
Right.
And you take it on the chin, you learn lessons where you can, but then you also you walk away and you never burn a bridge when you need to. It just is what it is. And do it with poise and do it with etiquette. And I mean, you'll be fine.
You never know when it comes back full circle,
right?
And you need that connection or you need that person down the road.
Right.
So
absolutely.
For whatever it is.
Yeah.
So let's go into, we went a lot about like the strategy and the thought behind your business and how you run it. But let's actually talk about the transformation of the space you're in. Because I know what it used to look like before you got in there. And it's been quite a journey just from what it used to look like to what it is now. So kind of talk about Lisby Collective space, where you're at. We didn't really plug the business in the beginning, but go through kind of at where you're at, how you transformed it, and a little bit about like the inside.
Yeah. I mean, I've always worked in an industry where creativity is expected, right? So I think visually my creative mind meshes super well with where I'm at with my job. I saw the space. I loved the amount of square footage that it has. That was the first and foremost, right? Because again, just my background, I knew how quickly you can outgrow stuff. I know how important closet and storage and all of the things that people tend to not think about or they overlook.
Right.
And making a space so versatile for people to be able to do their job and do it well, right? Unfortunately, it takes a lot of money, but it also takes strategic planning.
Right.
So for me, it was not just what I wanted the salon to look like. It was not just what I wanted the spa treatment rooms to look like. It was, okay, where are we going to do laundry? Where are they going to fold clothes? Where are we going to put those detergents? Where are we going to put that extra backstock? Where are they going to eat lunch? How many people can we put around that table?
When we get bigger.
Like, yes, absolutely, right? So if a chair breaks and I need to move that chair off the salon floor, where am I going to be able to store it until I can take it back to my home to like store it more permanently? Things like that were constantly in my brain. If I use this floor and color spills on it, am I going to be able to get that color up, or is it automatically ruined? If I get this certain chair color, same thing, and hair color gets on it, am I going to be able to get it off? You know, those were always things that were circulating in my brain, because I don't want it to just look great. I want it to be sustainable
and functional
functional for what we need to do. So when we were doing the build out, those were things that I was always asking myself. And I was on the job site, I want to say almost every day, if not every other day, constantly walking through, and I would try to kind of envision myself as a client or an employee in that moment. Okay, so if I'm standing and doing hair here and I have to step back, do I hit the wall? Well, that's not cool. That's not really giving me space to do what I need to do. Things like that. Or here's a window. This is a service where I definitely think natural light is going to come into play, but this service, I don't necessarily need that.
Right.
So that's where my brain worked. I had a great builder. His name was Steve Eby. He's United Enterprises. He mainly does grocery stores.
Okay.
So he was like, well, this is a first for me.
He'll put that in his portfolio.
And not only that, we had 12 weeks to transform a 4,500 square foot building. Completely gutted it, completely redid it.
And it was like office. It was like a cube land before you had it.
Yeah, it was very stinky too, if I remember correctly.
It was an odd smell.
It was two separate businesses. I think one was like accounting and the other was like medical building or something.
Yep.
So we like busted out the walls, integrated. The biggest thing is you got to find where your plumbing lines are. Plumbing is huge in my industry. You need water and you need lots of it.
Yeah.
But it was also a concrete slab.
Everything's already on the ground.
Super expensive if we have to do a ton of drilling. So everything that I systematically like put logistically, sorry, I hit the mic. Wherever I put stuff like systematically, I had to think about like, okay, if I need a sink here, how easy and how cost effectively am I going to be able to tap into that line?
Right.
So there was a lot of working parts. Now that I actually talk about it, I'm like, how did I do that?
I get through all this, yeah.
Actually, now that I'm like re-saying it, I'm like, I don't even really know how I did that.
It's probably best if you didn't. You just kind of went.
I blacked out.
Went through it, yeah.
I died a little bit and came back. But Steve was great too, because there was a lot of moments where I was just like stumped. And sometimes you get so much, your creative juices just die.
Yeah.
And you're like, you know,
you only have so much.
I don't even care anymore. Someone make this decision for me. I got to that place a lot, and he was great because he knew to kind of step in and give me a little bit of direction. And we worked seamlessly together, and he flipped that thing in 12 weeks. And I don't want people to hear that and be like, oh, but is it holding? It is like rock solid. I have not had any issues.
It's beautiful in there too. Yeah.
It is. I'm so proud of that space. I'm so happy to walk in there every single day and say, this is where I work. It's vibrant. It encapsulates everything that I wanted when I was envisioning it, honestly.
Nice. And you're over by the CVS and Walmart in Carlisle.
Yes.
It's over off of Southwest Street.
Yeah.
If you guys are wondering why that was a cut, it's because I always flip those two. But it's Southwest Street,
no big deal.
Carlisle, right across the street from the Brewsters.
Yes.
And
Brewster's is BYOB on Wednesdays. If you bring your own banana, you get half off a
how about that?
Banana split. So I don't know if
I just learned that.
Did I just shamelessly plug them? I think I did. You're welcome, Brewster's.
Yeah. That's okay. Now I'm hungry for ice cream. But
and I'm not going to say that I don't do that all the time.
No, no one's judging you. But yeah, I mean, so you have a beautiful space. Your team, I've only had a minimal interaction with them just from bringing things over from the other side, the other building. But they're fantastic. You have a great business that you're running, and it sounds like you have just an awesome operations. I think when people see it from the outside and see the way that you have things built, they're probably thinking like, oh man, it's perfect. You know, how do I do that for myself? And it's not something that happens overnight, just like anything. You know, you even look at what you would consider your work as it is today. And when I say your work, I mean the whole collective, not the collective business name, but the collective of what you have built so far.
Right.
And you would even say like, oh, it's far from perfect.
Right.
But people see it as, perfect or a well-functioning machine. You just can't be your own critic sometimes.
Right.
You have to step away. But, you've done a lot of work in making it what it is today. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's like aim for the stars, settle for the treetops. I think always set your standards high. Always.
And always keep looking for the next thing.
Absolutely. And don't mix up complacency with contentment. And I think people intermix those sometimes. It's okay to be like, I've been working here 10 years and I'm super happy.
This is what I want.
That's great. I mean, literally you've achieved it, right? There's a time and place when you feel like the evolution of you is not done. And that doesn't always have to be professional. Sometimes it's personal, whatever it is. I think that kind of goes back to like your soul searching and what you say to yourself in the shower on your drive home or whatever. But don't intermix those two. But the work of you is never done, but there is going to be moments in time and eras where you're happy and you're content. And there's going to be moments where you need to put your foot on the gas pedal a little bit. But just always give yourself grace.
And it always looks different. It's never what you think. It's probably never what you think it'll be either. So like, and you have kids. So it's, you know, we're in a situation, I have 2 kids too. And it's like, there's moments where you thought it would look a certain way and you're like, that's not anything I thought it was, but that's what I needed in the moment, or that's what I need right now.
Right.
And this is where I have to stay. It doesn't mean in the back of your head that there's not other things you want to achieve, whether it's personally or professionally or whatever. But I'm just using kids as an example because it's like there's different milestones when you're building and growing your family that you have to just say like, okay, now it's time to push. Now it's time to not. Yeah. It's time to be content, like you said, where you're at. Right. Both personally and professionally.
Personally, with my child, honestly, if I could go back and do anything different, I think it would have been to slow down more. I think it would have been to be more in the moment and just to be happy in that moment in time instead of like, oh man, I can't wait till she walks. Oh man, I can't wait till she can, you know, wash her own hands. Stop doing this. Yeah. Oh man, I can't wait till she sleeps through the night. You know, don't wish it away. Sometimes you are exactly where you need to be. Yeah. You know, and
it's hard in the moment.
Well, social media, you know, puts all these memes out of like boss babe, you know, no one's going to do it for you. And I think inspiration is great, right? But you have to take it with a grain of salt. Right. And don't forget that living life is living life is literally the small things, right? It's smelling the roses. It's appreciating the sunshine. It's sitting in your backyard. Shaking your neighbor's hand. Right. It's the simple things. Don't overlook the simple things in life because sometimes they're the most beautiful. Yeah, it's the most calming even too. Yeah. So awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on. How can people, you have your website. We'll put your website link in. Is there any other way you can kind of plug people to find you, the schedule online, like if someone's looking to become a client of yours? Yeah, I have an awesome social media girl. So we're pretty active on TikTok. We've even got some viral stuff going on there. So you can find us on TikTok at Lisby Collective. We've got Facebook, Instagram platforms. Our website is lovelisby.com. Okay. They can schedule. Yeah, you can schedule online. We try to make it super convenient. I mean, I myself always think about scheduling an appointment at 10 o'clock at night. Right? So like I'm really, like let's make it easy for the people. Right before you're like ready to fall asleep. Like what didn't I do today? Do that thing. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, or you can give us a call. You know, we're still that weird business where you can call and actually speak to a real person, and you know, it's not a menu. Exactly. Right. Yeah. So. And then to finish that, you were saying you have a lot of people that also just apply. If there's anyone that's obviously, if you're not hiring, that's different. But like if people are truly like, well, I'm very interested in talking with you, is there a way to reach out to you just to chat about careers or anything? Yeah, directly from our website, lovelisby.com. You can go on there. There's a careers tab. Click on the careers tab. It comes directly to my personal professional email. And I'm super responsive. I am old school in the sense of if someone sends you an email, even if it's no, you're not interested, you reply. I've always been that way. So I'm never going to ghost you. And there's a hip term. I'm not going to ghost you. So yeah, I believe in communication. I believe in being like reliable. So yeah. I'm always open for a conversation, whether we're hiring or not. Again, it's planting that seed. Maybe right now is not the time, but again, I like to meet as many people as I can, especially if they share the same passion for the industry that I do. Right. You never know, like you said, that when that bridge was a valuable connection or not. Absolutely. I thank you so much. This was awesome. I had so much fun. Thanks for coming on. Of course. Thank you.